Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the show. We have all had the experience of getting to a campground and realizing that it's impossible to navigate into the site because of an odd angle or trees in the way. Today, we are talking with Marc from campgroundviews.com about the technology they have developed that shows 360-degree views of the campground, including the sites. Also, they are integrating availability and booking when you find the site that you like. As you will hear, they plan to roll out the first iteration in July with many of the Western US campgrounds that are able to be reserved on recreation.gov. There are some benefits to signing up before they actually go live, including huge discounts. So let's get into the discussion with fellow full-time RVer and entrepreneur, Marc.
All right. Hi, Marc. Thanks for joining us today. Could you tell us a little bit about yourself and your role at Campground Views?
Hey there, thanks for having me. First off, my name is Marc Koep. Our company's campgroundviews.com, and for the last 12 years, my wife and I were full-time RVers. Started a family on the road and began that whole journey. And through that journey, it was actually very early on in that experience, we found that the single biggest problem for campers is finding a place to camp. Where am I going to go camping at? And because that was the biggest problem, we have sought to solve that issue, and that was what campgroundviews.com was born out of, was to help people actually find places to camp. Because we view, and I don't know, you may agree or disagree, the biggest problem when you're looking for campgrounds is it's all text-based information. You have to read reviews. First, you have to find the campground. Then you have to read reviews on it. Then you have to find out if that person that wrote the review is a real person. So you have to go read their other reviews, and then you have to discover if they're crazy or not, and if you agree with their review or not, in order to pick the campground. I was like, what? Everybody's got a cell phone with a camera on it. Let's just get some videos and pictures and go past all that. So we now have 40,000 photographs, 3,000 videos, and we are now launching full-on campground virtual tours that allow you to virtually tour a campground, see the sites, and actually click on the sites to book it.
You have a lot of photos and videos and everything already. How old is Campground Views? When did this start?
So the crazy idea started about 2 years into our journey, was where anybody who's done anything entrepreneurial, started a business, it always starts with a really stupid idea, like, hey, let's do that. That's usually the worst idea you'll ever have, is, hey, let's do this. And so we had this crazy idea, like, hey, Good Sam's not doing it, so let's go ahead and do it, and we'll take all their business. It'll be really easy. And it's never easy, and it's never that fast. But the idea started then, and we actually started out with a big problem. I assumed, and this is at that time, I assumed I could go out to some of the information database sources that are out there, like Info USA, and buy a list of campgrounds and start out a directory. So I'd have an initial list. So we did that. We went out and bought a list, and it wasn't very good. So I bought another list, and that wasn't even better. I ended up buying 3 lists from like the sources of information, and they were awful. They were missing campgrounds and RV parks. They didn't have hardly anything. Usually they have, and you'll see this, a directory will start up and it'll say, hey, we have 20,000 campgrounds. The second they say that, that they bought a list. Because what happens is those list companies will group mobile home parks with RV parks. They'll say, oh, it's the same thing. And anybody who's RV knows, no, they're not the same thing. There's a lot of mobile home parks that you can't stay in an RV anyways. So we had to spend 2 years. I did it on extra time. So as I was running my other business, I would take some time at the end of the day or work all night, hand building the database. So our database was built by hand, all 16,000 campgrounds and RV parks. And that took several years. So then the business really launched we're at about 5 years ago is when we really launched Campground Views to the public.
And then it's basically crowdsourced with the video footage and photographs and all that.
That's the concept. The photos, definitely. The videos, a lot of those videos are what we've filmed when we've been out. So we have 3,000 videos. I personally visited over 5,000 campgrounds and RV parks across the country. And so, if you're going to start anything, you end up having to do a lot of the legwork yourself. Now we are getting videos of campgrounds and RV parks from campers. We've got enough to where there's a critical mass there where people can use it. And so, yeah, it's crowdsourced, but a lot of it was started by us.
I bet being a full-timer really helped as far as being able to go to 5,000 different campgrounds. That is nuts.
Yeah, I mean, it got to the point where we were literally planning our trips for, hey, where's the most campgrounds at that we can be near within like 10 or 15 miles? And we started jumping around. And as we were in an area for a few weeks, I would take a day or whatever and get in the truck and go visit all the different campgrounds and RV parks that were there and check them all out. And so, you just keep doing that day in, day out. You eventually get this giant list of campgrounds and RV parks you've been to. Plus, it was fun. Campgrounds and RV parks are always unique and pretty. If they're an RV park, usually unique. If it's a campground, usually pretty. And so you get to experience that. And then they're also usually in unique areas. So either a place you want to be, like a touristy area, or a more rural area. And so driving to those areas, you get a real feel for the country. And kind of a funny story on that. This goes back 2 years ago. I was on a flight across the country and I fell asleep right after it took off. And it was a nighttime flight. So I woke up about an hour and a half later because they have those stupid ding, ding, dings all the time. It woke me up. And I looked out the window and it was pitch black. But I looked down and I could see the roads and I could see the streets. And I guessed in my head exactly where I thought we were. And so then it was an American Airlines flight. So I pulled up the little dash screen that's in front of you and went to the GPS and I guessed right. We were over Roswell, New Mexico, and I was looking right down at Roswell. And not only could I see it, but I knew where all the campgrounds were around it. I knew where all the roads were, and I had an intimate relationship with that area. Like I knew it as if it was my own home. And anybody who's RV'd for long enough knows that feeling. Like you get a real sense of this country and what it's about, or wherever you're RVing, if it's in this country or Canada or Mexico, whatever. The RV allows you, and visiting campgrounds allows you to get a real feel for the space.
Yeah, that's what we really liked about it, was the ability to really get to know an area. You're not just there for a couple days. You're there in your RV for sometimes a significant amount of time, and you really get to learn about the parts of the country that you're in.
It makes you appreciate it. When we first started traveling, the big question, anybody's RV, the big question you always get from people who've never RV'd is, what's your favorite place? Where would you live if you could? And originally we had that place. It was Springdale, Utah, outside of Zion National Park. Love that spot, right? So we're like, Springdale. And that was in the first 2 years we had that answer. Once we got beyond 2 years, in fact, even now, we don't really have a good answer, because the reality is there are spots all around this country that are amazing certain times of the year. Like I don't necessarily want to be in Maine in the winter, but during the summertime, Acadia National Park is absolutely unbelievable. Same thing with the Florida Keys. Don't necessarily want to be there in the summer. In the winter, it's awesome. So being able to live in all those different areas was really amazing, and having the ability. And it's something that's unique to our times. And a lot of folks are experiencing that now in this work from home environment, is with the ability to connect virtually anywhere. It's suddenly changing the whole paradigm of what is normal to live, right? I actually think it's a little weird to live in a house. We're in the process of buying a house right now, and it's completely foreign to me because I didn't watch the HGTV shows or any of that stuff. I've been living in an RV for 12 years. Now I'm looking at buying a house, and it's weird. Like the entire concept of buying a house is completely foreign. If you want to go buy an RV, you know what you do? You go down to the dealership and you get to walk in, 50 different RVs, pick them out, all that stuff. If you want to buy a house, you get to look at 2 or 3 of them, and then you're having to pay, $300,000 for the one that you seem to like the best, and then you're winging it, hoping your neighbors are cool because you're stuck next to them, for 5-10 years. So it's a totally different experience. That if you look at it from that perspective, it's like, wait, why are you buying a house? It doesn't make any sense at all.
Yeah, that's true. And you're right about, having them all at one location where you can literally walk into one and then walk into another and kind of compare them side by side. They're all in one location a lot of times, especially at the shows and things like that. It's a definite advantage over house shopping, where you said, you might see 1 or 2 a day. I also want to echo something that you said earlier, that you kind of said quickly and we moved on, and I forgot to kind of mention that, how much I agree with you about reviews. When my wife and I read reviews, you really have to take them with a grain of salt of who is writing that review and their state of mind kind of at that time. We have seen some campgrounds with horrible reviews, but it was really, where we were going. It just had to be the place that we had to stop. And we, just kept our fingers crossed, and we stayed there, and we thought the entire campground was wonderful. The staff was wonderful, and the overall experience was wonderful. And we're like, wow, why does this place have so many poor reviews? What were these people expecting compared to what did they receive? And like you said, it's all in a text form, so you don't really know what were they seeing differently than what we're seeing.
Exactly. And how old are they? What type of features did they want? Everybody has a different experience. And it's what's unique about camping. And it's the big mistake a lot of big companies make. So a lot of big companies enter our space in trying to provide reservation software to the campgrounds and RV parks. And they try to bring the hotel booking experience to campgrounds and RV parks. The problem is unlike hotels where everybody fits in the same room, fits in the same bed, and can use all those same facilities, whereas your decisions for hotels are price, location, amenities, right? In a RV or a tent camping, you actually, like, for example, your door is probably located in a different spot than my door is. Your slide is located in a different spot. The truck you're towing it with is different. So your sizes are all different. Your spacing needs are different, which is very hard to program in ones and zeros, right? It's hard to create that. It lends itself to the visual experience. So it's naturally the visual experience. And what's always baffled me is why Google Street View has not driven through the campgrounds. It's just, why haven't they? It would make it so much easier. And so that's why we've gone that route, is we become the Google Street View of campgrounds. Let's go drive through the campgrounds.
Now we've looked at a couple of your demos that you've put out, and I think there's a couple on your website, but kind of talk us through what that 360 view does for a person that's looking at it.
Yeah, so everybody's familiar with Google Street View, and you can drop into the map and kind of look around. Now, when you do that in Google Street View, you'll remember that there's little arrows, and if you click on them, it moves you forward or backward or left or right. The reason it works that way is Google Street View is actually taking photographs as they go down the road. So picture, picture, picture. And what you're doing is you're navigating forward and backward in that picture show. The way we're capturing it is actually different. We're utilizing video. So it's a constant stream of a whole bunch of pictures, formed into a video. So we're capturing Google Street View, but in video format of a campground. And then we've built a technology that allows us to put markers over where the sites are at, and then provide data on top of that video. So as you're touring, you can actually set your date parameters. So I want to stay there from May 2nd through May 5th. You can put those date parameters in, and we'll automatically populate which campsites are available by changing the icons from green to red. And if it's green, you can actually click on that icon, get more information as you're looking at it. So you're in this Google Street View, you're actually looking at the site, and you'll get information on that site. And there'll be a book now button that if you click, it'll take you straight into, right now, recreation.gov to complete that booking. And so that's the user experience. You'll be able to basically do what every camper wants to do, which is, I want to drive through the campground road before I pick out my site, because I know what, that site might be big enough for me to fit in, but I don't know how to back it in. I want to pull through or whatnot. Whatever the reasons are, we're actually creating that visual experience for you.
Yeah, that's what I really liked about that demo, is just what you said, is the site looks great, but how am I going to be able to maneuver into that site?
Yeah, there's so many different variables between all of us, like you were saying earlier. I was not aware that you would be able to book the site right from your software. So you have some type of integration to be able to. So you're actively working with the campgrounds? Is that how it works? Okay.
Yeah. So in this first iteration, the biggest campground network that's on the same booking engine is recreation.gov, which is National Park, Forest Service, Corps of Engineer, and Bureau of Land Management. So all the federal campgrounds that are bookable are on a site called recreation.gov. And they have an API that allows us to pull the availability of that. And so this last year during COVID, we went out and captured every single recreation.gov property in the states of Arizona, Utah, Colorado, Wyoming, Montana, Idaho, and Nevada. So it's 400 campgrounds in that area. We went and captured those. And so we are now bringing that into the market. We developed our tech, and we're putting the videos into the player. And we're hoping by July, that's our target, is by July, you will be able to go to campgroundviews.com and go and virtually tour over 400 campgrounds in those states. And then this season, this next summer, we're going to be filming all of the rest. And then once we have the recreation.gov, we'll go to the state parks. Once we get to state parks, we'll go to the private parks.
Okay. Now you've been to many of them. Are you doing the recording yourself? You have a team that's being separated and sent all over to do the recording for you?
Both, yeah.
Both,
So
okay.
initially, if you remember when COVID hit in March, the world came to an end, right? And so we were full time at that time, and so we were holed up until June, and then we hit the road. And so I started doing some filming just as we were traveling, because why not? Nothing else you can do. And then as things started to open up, we got some teams going around July, August, got some teams going. And this year we're going to have a whole bunch of teams going out now that things have loosened up a little bit. It became a little bit of an ethical thing too, because we didn't know how bad COVID was. And is it really ethical of you as a business to hire somebody and pay them to potentially put themselves at risk? So we didn't feel comfortable doing that until once we got into July and knew a little bit more about the virus and the risk and all that type of stuff, where we felt like we were okay to send somebody out there that was on our payroll. And so there's a little bit of that. And then if you remember last year, the forest fires, I mean, we wanted to get California, Oregon, Washington, couldn't even touch those states because of COVID and because of forest fires. So it's pretty amazing when you think about what we were able to capture during that time period. In fact, there's a funny story. Our videographer team that's out there, they were in southern Idaho at the time, and we were helping them route, because it's pretty complex going to that many campgrounds and how you get there and where you're going to stay at, fuel up and all that stuff. So we're helping them route. And I looked up this campground and it didn't have any information on it, but luckily I got a Google, like I subscribe to Google News and I get like updates on campgrounds and RV parks. And one of the campgrounds that was on our list had a fire at it. Like it was, the whole forest was closed. So I'm like, wait a second. I went in and looked, and it was like the next one they're supposed to film. And I looked, and there was this massive brush fire going on. So I'm literally texting them. They're in the middle of nowhere. Hey, go a different route. They ended up not getting my text messages, but luckily they were smart enough to see the giant plume of smoke and not go up there. And apparently as they're driving, the flames are burning right alongside the road as they were skipping out of there to go to the next campground. So a real adventure capturing all this stuff.
I have a maybe a strange question. So when you're going to the campgrounds and you're filming, do you need permission? Do you ask for permission? Do you work with the campground? Like, do they know that's why you're there? Do they give you a hard time? Or I would imagine that they're pretty accessible and they would want you to be doing this because it only helps them.
So the answer is yes to every single one of those statements. It's across the board. As far as, I mean, if you remember, you probably during COVID, the federal government was shutting down their campgrounds, like the Forest Service, and they weren't just shutting them down. They were locking the gate, and then they were putting signs up that if you entered that campground, it was 10 years in prison and a $10,000 fine. Mind you, you're in the middle of the forest. COVID's you're not gonna get it from the tree. At least we don't know that yet. But it was bonkers. But we were like, hey, can we really go and film? Well, when would we say it's filmed? Last year during COVID? No. So we couldn't capture those ones. Another example, a camp host decided that he didn't know who we were and what we were doing. So he decided, and I was actually filming this one, to come racing up in front of me in his golf cart, skid to a stop, like immediately in front of me to where I almost crashed into him, and then start berating me and threatening me. And I was just like, dude, you're on camera right now. I don't know what you're doing. And then back to the legality of it. So we're filming public parks, so federal properties. There was just a federal court ruling on this very topic. You are absolutely allowed to film within federal properties. The only time that they can require you to have a permit is if you're doing a professional movie shoot where you have multiple people, and or you need to take away the ability from other people to enjoy that. Riding around with a camera up is the same thing anybody else can do. So as long as you're not taking away their enjoyment. And another key point of that, as long as you're not violating their privacy, you can do that. So we'll be blurring out faces and license plates. And so that's how we're able to do that. We're also in active talks with a number of them, basically saying, hey, we're doing this, number one. And number two, it benefits you if we got your okay, so we don't have the camp hosts getting to a stop in front of us.
Yeah, that probably can be tricky at times with camp hosts that aren't aware of what the campground has allowed or not allowed.
Yes.
Yeah. It seems like a very expensive endeavor that you're undertaking here with, I mean, just the server space to store all that video, I bet is crazy. So if you can, or if you want to, how do you earn revenue?
Yeah. So actually I'll give you a little bit of a more of a journey in this. So imagine my wife and I have been full-time RVers, right? We're living on the road. We built this nice lifestyle business that we're filming as we're going along. And then we have this crazy idea to go to this next level in technology. It's not just us doing it. A year ago, we connected with an amazing team. So we got 3 other people working with us. So a team of 4. My wife has since stepped aside to raise the children. And we have pulled together this amazing team that has literally, we bootstrapped it to make all this stuff happen. So our tech lead, Steven, he's built the technology and made this all kind of happen on the tech side. Whereas Trish and RVer have helped us really build the business up from an operations and sales standpoint. So the reason I mention all that, because that goes to this answer. So back when the business was just me and my wife going out and traveling, the way we funded ourselves is by providing digital marketing services to campgrounds and RV parks. So I handle their websites, I handle their Google ads. We were doing, our big thing was video production. So we do professional video productions of private RV parks for their marketing purposes. And through that, we were basically funding ourselves. So we were able to pay our bills and live this life on the road and at the same time grow our business. Fast forward, now that we have a team, we actually pulled the team together in February of 2020. Just in time for COVID to hit. And so March 12th, and I encourage everybody to go look, March 12th, go and see what happened to the Dow Jones on March 12th. And then imagine that you're me and you got the team behind you and you have just driven all the way to Santa Monica and you're pitching in front of the largest angel investment group that evening in Santa Monica. It was, needless to say, we didn't get squat because the whole entire market had crashed. But as our team, we came together. And we at the same time, we run a different business that helps park owners grow their business. We ended up creating an event, a virtual event called the Back to Camping Summit. And through that, we helped the park owners get the information they needed to have a record year like they did last year. And what little capital we did get off that helped get us through the summertime. And then here we are going into the actual camping season of 2021. And now people can go to campgroundviews.com. Your listeners can go to campgroundviews.com and sign up now to access these 360 tours when they come live. And so we're offering a discount package. And I can tell you that the last 3 weeks have been amazing, the amount of support we've gotten. It's been like you hear about the field of dreams, you build it, they will come. People have come, they've resonated with it. So we're on our way. It's kind of cool.
And then is the sign, like the membership part of the site, is that, I saw something recently about a crowdfunding campaign. Is that separate or part of it, or?
Yeah, no, it's a good question. So we were thinking about how the heck do we fund this thing, right? And the whole idea is, how do we fund? We have the videos, we have the technology, but we need to combine them, and it takes quite a bit of money to do that. Can we sell it in advance? So that's where the idea of a crowdfund came in. Well, crowdfunding is, your people are supporting you and making it go ahead. So we started out with a crowdfunding campaign on the site Indiegogo, and we did a bunch of research. It seemed like a good platform. It seemed like it had an audience, so we started it. And on day one, and mind you, we're only advertising go to Indiegogo, go to Indiegogo. On day one, 1/3 of the people came to Campground Views and donated there. And we're like, wait a second, why are we going to do all this work to send all the traffic to Indiegogo when 1/3 of the people ignored that and went straight to us? So after day one, we basically stopped the Indiegogo work and just turned all of our marketing and attention back to campgroundviews.com. And then that's when things really started to snowball. People were coming in, they were signing up for the memberships, and they were joining it. And we no longer needed to raise a whole bunch of money up front if we've got people coming in on a consistent basis. And so it was a mental shift from an operations standpoint. You can imagine we budgeted and all this other stuff. And so to do that change. And so we call it kind of an ongoing crowdfunding. Basically, it's a win-win. So we're getting the money we need to actually make this happen. And the campers that are signing up early are getting massive discounts on it, including, a year, 3-year, or lifetime access for essentially half off of what we'll be charging for it in a few short months.
That's good to hear that you're going to have different levels. So you could do a lifetime, or that's great. I don't know why I like that, but I always like choices, and almost like, I can try it for a little bit. I would suppose this is, other people have the same thought process. Well, I'll try it for a year, and then if I really like it, I can sign up for the full time or the lifetime rather.
When we go live, we'll actually have as low as a week. So, if you think about it, we're starting out with recreation.gov. A lot of the people that camp at recreation.gov, they're only going to go camping once, right? It's a tent camping trip with the family in the summer. So they're not going to need a lifetime or a year. But if we give them a week and they can use the videos and plan their trip and do all that, hey, it's a win for them. So we'll have a week, a month, a year, and a whole bunch of options in there. We're also courting some bigger advertisers to potentially subsidize those weekly or monthlies, to where it's essentially free because we're getting sponsorship dollars to cover it. So we're really trying to think outside the box. Our goal is to get this in as many hands as possible because we believe that it will make camping more accessible, easier, and a little bit more enjoyable. So there's a win for doing that. But on the flip side, we need to be able to pay the server costs, as you know, and actually make this thing happen.
Is one of your goals to expand into like some of the privatized and commercial or the franchises as well? And if it is, what type of challenges do you think you face or are you facing with that?
Very good question. Yeah, we do see the private side coming on. It's a different beast altogether. So when you think about the public parks, let's talk about like the mindset of the folks that are running those parks. If you're talking about a public park, we'll just take a county campground, for example. The person managing that campground, they don't own it. They're on a county paycheck. So their job is really, hey, check people in and not piss anybody off so I can keep getting my payment and my pension. Mm-hmm. Flip it over to somebody who owns their private RV park. All of the income that goes into the cash register goes into their pocket, pays for their bills, and keeps them fed. They care a lot about their park. And it's funny, we've been talking to some private parks, and they literally, this isn't all of them, this is some of them. They don't want us to film because they don't want campers to see their park before they get there. Imagine that for a second. They don't want us to film because they don't want you. What are they hiding? And so that's why we've gone the model that we're going. We're already proving that there's significant demand for this technology, that people want it, that they're going to use it. So by doing it this route with the public route, we're going to create so much traffic that in the end, the private parks kind of have to use it because we'll have all the traffic. It'd be, why not use it in order to get traffic in? So we are in active talks with a number of them. The other kind of answer to that question is just the nature of the way reservations work in the camping industry. As campers, most campers don't even think about reservations other than why don't they have online reservations or why do I have to call? And that's probably usually the question. But assuming that they have online reservations, there is an entire little inside camping thing. There is an entire industry of reservation software companies that focus on the camping industry. And it is a very large industry with multiple very competitive players in that space. So if we want to work on the private parks, not only do we got to get the private parks on board, but we have to get their underlying reservation system on board because they need to create the API for that data feed that we need in order to make it work. So there's a lot of moving parts. And that's why doing this the way we're doing it with the recreation.gov makes so much sense.
Campground reservation systems, some of them gain revenue by taking like for every reservation they get a percent or so many points or whatever.
It's usually a fee.
Yeah. So is that also an option for campground views to kind of get in on that as well?
I don't want to say get in on it. What I would say is it's a potential way to fund it. So basically there's two business models here. And right now we're going down the membership route because that puts us directly in line with the camper, right? If the camper's paying for it, our entire focus is serving them, so we want to make sure that our experience is as good as possible for those camping members. If we dovetail that to where the campground owners are paying for it, remember I noted that they don't want you to film their whole park. We might start getting incentivized to not show the whole park, right? Only film our first loop and put that one on and get people in, and then we'll put them in the back one that's really crappy. So that's part of it, right? Is who's paying you and who's your master, right? Whoever's giving you your money is your master. So if it's the campers, we're serving them. If it's the owners, we're serving them. And so it would change things. But there is an argument to be made where these experiences could be utilized on their website. So they have our video player embedded on their website, but it's also available at campgroundviews.com, and they pay a small licensing fee for that. So that's something that we're definitely open to. And again, we're campers. We're full-time RV for 12 years. I want to serve the camping audience. And I want to do it because I believe, and our team believes, that the last best way for us all to survive this crazy world is to get outside, to go camping, to explore with nature, with our family, friends, and just get outdoors. And anything we can do to help that, that's what we're trying to do.
I see your point with the, you know, the difference in focus with each of the different streams. And I, as a camper, I appreciate that you're focusing more on the camper than the campground owner.
Yeah, and you know, it's funny we say that. So we currently started about 3 years ago a Facebook group specifically dedicated to campground and RV park owners, and it goes back to that what I just said. I want to make it easier and more accessible for us all to camp and have amazing experiences. And anybody who's camped in any private parks knows that there is a wide variety of experiences and knowledge on how to operate a business between campground owners. And it could be anywhere from awesome to really bad. And those really bad ones can ruin the experience for a lot of, think of a new camper who just rented an RV and they go stay at a crappy campground, right? So we've spent a lot of time over the last 3 years educating, informing, and raising the bar on the way campgrounds and RV parks operate their business. And we've seen this massive improvement. We have 2,700 members representing over 2,000 campgrounds and RV parks that are members of our Facebook group that we educate on a regular basis. So, and the reason is we want them to run better parks so that we can all have better places to camp. And so if we keep raising that bar on our industry, it should help, I hope.
That's very important what you just said, though, about the camping experience. And you said, you know, somebody new to camping tries it, they stay at a bad park, they have a bad experience. And that I just thought about, you know, we were just talking briefly before we started recording with you that my wife and I rented an RV and went camping for a weekend. The RV itself was horrible, but the experience was great. And part of that experience being great was the campground that we stayed at. We just had a great time at the campground. Staff was great. We were able to rent ATVs, and the whole experience on their park property was good. But if that RV was bad, plus the campground being bad, that might have been it for us, and we may never have tried it ever again. You know, that could have been our one and done RV experience. And just, yeah, that's very important what you just said for the new RVers.
Yeah, and you remember the question you said, hey, how'd you build up your video? So we consciously looked at the market when we first built Campground Views, and we're doing the same thing now with this 360. We looked at how do people camp, especially with the new campers. What do new campers do? This is the normal journey for every new camper. They go and test it out locally, and then they go on the road trip. They're going to go to Yellowstone. They're going to go to Yosemite. They're going to go to the major national parks or major destinations. And so we've consciously focused on those areas to get good data on them. And there's a reason why. You already are seeing the news stories now that everything's full in Yosemite, everything's full in Yellowstone, everything's booked. And it bugs me when I see that because it's a flat out lie. Not that those campgrounds inside Yellowstone are full. It's the lie that you can't find a campground there. Because within a 100-mile radius of Yellowstone, there's something like 150 campgrounds and RV parks within that radius. If you figure that the average campground has 60 sites, that's what? I'm doing the math in my head. I'll do it easy. 60,000 or 6,000 campsites available within that radius. You can find a place to camp. The trick is, it's the answer to that next question is, well, how do I find that place to camp? And the answer right now is it's pretty hard. You have to spend a lot of time searching around and stuff. So we're trying to solve that problem for everybody, which is making it really easy for them to discover these little hidden gems that they may not have ventured to because the information was lacking. And now they can because they can actually see it on a virtual tour.
So how hard is it to start and run a business like this as a full-time RVer?
It's easy. I recommend everybody do it. No, so it gives background. So a lot of folks will ask, well, were you independently wealthy? How'd you sell everything in 2009 and do that? So at the time I was running a digital marketing agency, the Google Local, the Google Maps that come up in Google search results. They had just launched that, and we had a system where we could get any business into the top 3 there. And so I had a guy that was reselling it, and I was doing the work, and it enabled us to go full time. And so we were traveling. So I was running a business virtually already, which actually may be a good answer to your question is how can somebody, and it doesn't necessarily have to be a business in this business, but it's a business that's virtual. So here's some tips that I can share with you that may help if you're working virtually. Number 1, you are not working virtually. Wait, what, Mark? How does that work? It's a mind shift. You are not working virtually. You are working from an office. Your office just happens to be in an RV on the road somewhere. So you need to make sure that you take responsibility for your office space, which means your equipment needs to be top notch, good computers, good printers, all that type of stuff. You need to make sure you have a good network in your RV, and you need to make sure that you have good connectivity from that network up to somewhere else. So either using a Verizon card or a satellite signal or multiple cellular cards. So you are responsible for your data connectivity if you're working virtually. So that's first, is that you're not virtual, it's just an office. Number two, because it's an office, you need to serve your clients as if you were in an office. Talk to them. Don't not answer the phone, run a business, have hours, get dressed up and actually do the work. So that's the second part of it. And then the third part of it is to build in time for yourself and your journey, because the cool thing about it is your office is in some place that's really awesome, and you could take an hour and a half lunch, you go for an awesome hike, grab a bite to eat, and be back at work. So what ends up happening through this lifestyle, and you notice how I answer that very broadly because I didn't want to get nuanced, because the reality is I don't know what type of business your viewers are going to start, what they're going to do, but know that you can do it. Most businesses that are virtual, you can do it from the road very effectively. You just got to be very purposeful in how you do that.
That's a great answer.
Yeah, very purpose. Yeah, that is a very good answer. I wanted to go back and ask you, this would just be an opinion, I guess, but when you're talking to some of the private ones and they're like, oh, well, we don't want you to record because we don't want people to see it. I wonder, do you think it's a little bit of mentality as it's almost out of their hands or out of their control? Maybe it's
Yes.
Maybe if they did it themselves, they'd feel comfortable doing it, but they're afraid of somebody else doing it. I don't know. Do you think that plays in a part at all?
So yes, it does. It's a good point. So one of the things I love about especially the private side of the campground and RV park space is it's the last small businesses in America. So a large portion of the RV parks and campgrounds are owned by mom and pops, family-owned businesses, and they've either owned it for generations or they just bought it and they're working with their kids and building it up. And so it's their baby. They're very, very protective of their baby. And so there is an element of control. There's also, and it's not knocking the owners at all, a lot of them are not tech savvy. So there's a little bit of the unknown there. What is this going to do? How are people going to react? And their biggest fear is, number one, they're going to lose business for whatever reason. And number two, that they're going to lose business in a way that they can't get it back, like they can't fix it. And what I'll share with that is the reason we got to this 360 journey is not because we purposely went to compete with Google Street View. This goes back several years ago. They started releasing 360 cameras, and I was like, wow, that's awesome. And we started utilizing them just to produce marketing videos for private parks. And so we started doing a few of them, and then we did this park that had been open since the 60s in Ohio. Big park, 160 sites, built around a lake, really beautiful location. A Natural Springs resort. So Natural Springs in New Paris, Ohio, that was the location. We went and we produced some videos, and they're still on their site now, some videos and some 360 tours. And they measured, because they had an online reservation system. I won't share the number with you, but I'll just put it this way. They made multiples upon multiples above and beyond what they paid us to do it. So it proved it. And then multiple parks since then, we have proven over and over again, when you implement video and allow people to see your park, whatever your park looks like, your bookings go up. And we all, we're campers. We're all full-time RVers, right? We get it, because we've had to be on the flip side trying to find campgrounds. And that, hey, if I'm looking at a website where I can actually see the campsites, even if it's not perfect, it's a heck of a lot better than the other ones that I can't see. At least this one, I know what I'm getting into. And so that inherently drives more people into those campgrounds because it solves that problem. And we've worked with multiple parks now. Like a good example is the Views RV Park outside of Dolores, Colorado. We just implemented a 360 video and some marketing videos. And I was just speaking to Matt and Wendy 2 days ago on it. And they were like, yeah, it's crazy, Mark. We're sold out through July. It's just nuts. So, the visual, that I guess that's kind of a roundabout way to answer it, is that they will inevitably decide it when the money shows them, because everybody else is just killing it.
Right. Yeah, it seems like a no-brainer for if you have, some campgrounds just don't have a website, but if you have a website, the more video that you put up, I would think the better off you're going to be as far as getting customers.
Yeah, well, we've spoken to a larger gathering of campgrounds that are in a group, and they pushed back on us and said, well, we only want you to film on certain weekends during the year, basically 4th of July, Memorial Day, and Labor Day. And I was like, why? Well, because that's when people are playing and having fun. And I was like, well, I agree with you. But the reality is, if I'm booking a campsite, I really don't care to see that stuff. I'm just looking to see the roads and the sites and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So we should film anytime. Like, well, no, there's not going to be leaves on the trees, or and that's a viable argument. Okay, let's film it sometime. It just goes to the ownership, the concern, and that's again why we've gone the route we've gone, because we're already starting to prove it with people signing up now. It'll prove it even more once we get the reservations live, and there's a lot of people starting to book through the tool. Then we have the data to support, hey, this is something that, it's now a business decision more than a gut decision.
And what's your timeline for going live?
So we plan on being live with the first 400 parks by July of this year. So July 2021, which is what, like 8-10 weeks away. I don't know. Again, I'm doing math in my head here while on camera. I shouldn't do that. A couple weeks away from us, whenever this airs. So July, it'll be live. And then this season, we're going to be capturing all the rest. So we plan on by the fall or winter having every single recreation family campground. So not the groups, not the horse camps, just the family style campgrounds available on the experience. And then that leads into state parks and then private parks as rapidly as we can go. It's fun to share this story now, because up until about 3 weeks ago, this was all just an idea. It was all a concept. And about 3 weeks ago, people started coming in and signing up, and it validated. Up until that point, I was like, well, I would pay for it. And I'm cheap. Honestly, I'm like, dude, I ain't going to pay for squat, right? But I'm like, I would pay for that. But, I'm a little biased, right? It was the question of, would other full-time RVers and campers actually pay for this? And the answer has been a resounding yes. And so we're like, sweet, we're on the right path. Let's continue to deliver.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So can you walk us through a little bit? So a customer signs up, and is it going to be searched by zip code? How do they find the campgrounds, and how do they move about the website a little bit?
Yeah, okay. So campgroundviews.com right now is a working search engine. You can go to campgroundviews.com and you'll see a search bar. I recommend searching by city or landmark. So Yellowstone or Los Angeles or whatever you're going, right? So search by city. Click search and you'll see the search results page come up. On your left-hand side will be a map. On your right will be a bunch of listings, and you can scroll through. There's filters there, so you can filter by, I need full hookups, or I need a pool, or whatever your filters are, and that'll whittle down that list a little bit. So that's how you search. Also at the top, there's a link that says Big Map. If you click on that Big Map button, it will bring up a big map, a big Google map that has all of our listings on it. And then you can zoom in and out just like you would on a Google map to see the different campgrounds. Click on it. The way you'll find the virtual experiences is we'll be adding a flag and then an additional link allowing you to quickly find those campgrounds and then go see that experience. And then if you sign up now, we don't have it live, right? We're still building it to be launched in July. So what you'll get now if you sign up is you'll be getting a weekly email from me with updates on where we're at. In fact, I'll be sending out an email here in a little bit. All right, so we're filming this on a Monday, so we'll be sending out that email. So you'll get the insider email. Plus, there's going to be a little bit of a beta period, right? We're going live with pretty crazy technology. So there'll be a window in which only you, our early members, will get access to test it out and bug it. So that's like when we release this beta version, there is something you can go test on our site right now and see it live. There's a beta version. That went out to our insiders about a week and a half before everybody else saw it. And they were able to provide us really tangible, like good feedback. So good, in fact, we immediately implemented those changes so that when we announced it to our wider audience, all the feedback we got was amazing. And so literally the insiders, the people that joined early, are making this a success. They're part of the journey, and we're bringing them along for the ride.
And you get a nice discount if you sign up early.
Huge
so that's
discount,
great. Yeah.
I always like to hear when companies not only listen, but they actually make the changes, because anybody can just listen but no, that's awesome. I always enjoy, Sean does too, that when we hear that the companies are listening and doing something about the information that they're receiving. So that's always a good sign for a good company.
Well, it's like Battleborn, your sponsor, right? Battleborn's become famous for that they listen to the audience and they're providing for it. So in a way, they're actually an inspiration for us, because they've proven that if you listen to the audience and you partner with them, partnering with the key influencers, the people that are out there talking to it, and you take their advice and apply it, that's how you succeed in anything, right? In the end, you can run a business, but you're not going to succeed if nobody's buying your product. And the only way people are going to buy your product is if they want it. And the only way they're going to want it is if you listen to what they want. So, it's kind of that circle where in the end, we're just providing a service that people want. Although we went a little bit different. We're providing them a service they didn't know they wanted, and then saying, hey, did you want this? Like, yeah, that's cool. So, we went a little bit weird.
So what are we not asking you, Marc? What else do we need to know about Campground Views?
That we can make the world a little bit better place if we make it easier for people to find great places to go outdoors. So, really, I think the next question is, where does this go next? And ideally, where this goes next is that we get every single campground and RV park available in a campground virtual tour to allow you to easily see those campsites. That way we can allow more people to go camping into more different locations and spread out this demand that's there. There's a lot of campers coming into space. Let's move them out into these other campgrounds. There's plenty of places for people to camp. They just don't know about it. And let's get them out in these different spots. That'll make our industry better. It'll make yours and my camping experience a little bit better. And hopefully, if everybody has a little bit of a better time outdoors, we make the world a little bit better.
And so where can people check it out? I want to make sure we have your website right, because I think there is a demo on there, right, of this 360 that they can look at now.
There is. Go to Campground Views. That's V as in Victor, IEWS.com, campgroundviews.com. You'll know it if you see the little shield logo that we have. A pop-up will come up that'll say, check it out. And if you click on that link, within the text there's a link to actually see the experience. Or you'll get a pop-up to ask you to sign up for a free account. Sign up for a free account. What that does is it gets you on our email list, and we won't spam you. We'll just send you updates as we're going along. If you're really interested and you want to sign up and you're like, hey, this is cool, Marc, I want to support you guys, join as an annual member, a 3-year member, or a lifetime member with that 50% off access, and you'll get on the insider list and really be a part of this journey.
We want to thank Marc for taking the time to come on and chat with us. We're so glad to hear that someone is out there trying to fix a major pain point in the campground viewing and reserving a spot. I like that you can find info about each individual site and that they're making different tier memberships so that it is easy for everyone to join. We look forward to following along as the company continues to grow into private campgrounds. Be sure to check out campgroundviews.com and sign up for their early bird special membership. As always, we'd like to thank Battleborn Batteries for sponsoring this episode. Battleborn Batteries is the best name in the RV and marine industry. Designed and assembled in the USA, backed by a 10-year warranty, the best solution for your battery anxiety. So go check them out at battlebornbatteries.com. Before you go, could we ask a small favor? Could you leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform? These reviews help us grow and get recognized. Take care, everyone, and safe travels.